Living during a pandemic involves coping with constant stress, from minor disruptions of regular routines to ongoing fear of death. In this episode of Viral Fashion, we'll look at how our clothing became a reflection of our need to escape the stress. Many social media memes during COVID-19 lamented, how could 2020 possibly become worse? But if you think we were drowning in disillusionment, imagine if our pandemic followed a 4-year world war. In 1918, people were done with death and disease.
You can imagine living through times like that. You really needed an escape. So the 20s allowed that. Not only did it allow it, but people took the opportunity to express their joy. So rather than getting the elements of a bodice and a huge skirt, petticoats, all of that, what you got was generally one slip over the head garment. There was either no waist at all or there was a dropped waist and no sleeves or very little sleeve. The dresses were so free because the people required them to be free. They needed the freedom that they had been denied during the First World War and during the pandemic when they were so restricted as to what they could and couldn't do.
Additionally, Orientalist motifs on light and silky selections allowed anyone who wore them to feel like they were in a faraway place.
I had no idea about the Oriental impact from travel during the war, which I think is very fascinating. And I remember that kind of coming through a couple of times as I was growing up. I was born in the 60s.
Much like the flapper dresses, these designs inspired by the East combined youthful flair with wishful fantasy. During COVID-19, fun also became harder to find. People had to get more creative with setting up play zones at home. Gatherings and events, if allowed, were restructured around social distancing and frequent sanitizing. Our fashion reflected that creativity, with bright colors and funky patterns, last seen in these garments from the 90s and 70s. Despite the depressing daily case counts, many looked for outfits that expressed optimism.
Casual clothes was fine during the pandemic, but I really like fashion. I like style, and I like dressing up.
Online shopping and social media were already part of our lives. But the pandemic accelerated everyone to the level of early adapters.
Even if we weren't so tech savvy before, we became very good at interacting on Zoom. I know there's lots of older ones at my church that suddenly became like super techie and were calling me and asking me for help because they wanted to talk to other people, and they were arranging a little like Zoom tea afternoons.
Our social lives moved online, and fashion followed. Anyone could launch their fashion trend on TikTok, and their followers could wear it for themselves with a click on the online store. The old-fashioned gatekeepers have permanently relinquished control of what comes next. Trends can come from anyone and anywhere. Will this newly found freedom be the lasting viral fashion trend in our post-pandemic world?